The ship called Distant Horizon moved slowly through the empty space. Its metal skin glowed softly in the light of a distant star. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, her tall blue form reflected in the viewing glass. She watched as the small blue-green planet grew larger on the screen. "Captain, I must again suggest caution," said Trell. The science officer's voice buzzed slightly, a trait common to all Mcteri. "The energy readings from this system are unusual. They do not match our records." Ilara nodded. She had heard these warnings since they first detected the strange pulses 3 days ago. "Your concern is noted, Trell. But the Council was clear. We must investigate all signs of advanced technology." She turned to the pilot. "Take us closer to the third planet." The Distant Horizon had been exploring this region for 5 standard months. Their mission was simple: map unknown systems and look for useful resources. No one expected to find anything interesting in this old, forgotten corner of the galaxy. Then they detected the energy signatures. "Captain, the planet appears abandoned," said the sensor operator. "No signs of cities or large structures visible from orbit. But there is something strange." "Show me," Ilara ordered. The screen changed to show a detailed map of the planet's surface. Small dots of light appeared, evenly spaced across all continents. "These points are emitting energy," the operator explained. "They appear to be maintenance systems of some kind. They've been running for. The computer can't calculate how long. At least 500,000 years." Ilara felt a chill run through her body. 500,000 years. The time matched the old stories. The legends of the vanished ones. "Prepare a landing team," she said. "I will lead it." 4 hours later, Ilara stood on the surface of the planet called Earth. The ground was covered with green plants, but she could see patterns beneath them. This had once been a city. Nature had claimed most of it, but not everything. The team followed the energy signature to a flat area beside a mountain. Officer Kent used a clearing tool to remove the plants, revealing a metal surface. "It's a door," Kent said with surprise. "And look at this." He pointed to a small panel that still glowed with power. When Ilara placed her hand on the panel, the ground rumbled. The door, hidden for centuries, began to slide open. Stale air rushed out from the darkness below. "Lights," Ilara ordered. The team activated their portable lights and began to descend the revealed stairway. The stairs led deep underground. They walked for nearly 10 minutes before reaching the bottom. What they found there made them stop and stare. It was a vast room filled with machines. Screens displayed information in an unknown language. Robots moved between the machines, performing maintenance tasks. None of the robots seemed to notice the visitors. "This facility has been running automatically for 500,000 years," Trell whispered, checking his scanner. "The power systems are like nothing I've seen before." Ilara walked to a central platform. As she approached, a screen lit up. Symbols flashed across it. "It's scanning us," Kent said nervously. Before Ilara could respond, the floor beneath them lit up. The 3-dimensional map appeared, showing not just this planet, but hundreds of others scattered across the galaxy. "These are coordinates," Trell said, his voice filled with awe. "Hundreds of them." On each marked planet, a small dot began to pulse with light. Something was happening. Something was waking up. Ilara didn't notice the small camera in the corner of the room. She didn't see it focus on her face. She didn't know that their presence had triggered a silent alarm that was now racing across the stars at speeds her people had never achieved. She couldn't know that after 500,000 years of silence, humanity's great plan was finally beginning. Frank Garrett wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished his shift. Working in the mines of Kepler-4 was hard, but it paid well. After 12 hours of fixing mining robots, all he wanted was a hot meal and sleep. He walked along the tunnel toward the exit when the ground shook beneath his feet. At first, he thought it was a mining blast, but it felt different. The walls around him vibrated in a steady pattern. "Control, this is Garrett in Section 7. Are you doing some new digging?" he asked into his comm device. "Negative, Garrett. "No scheduled blasts today," came the reply. "What are you feeling?" The vibration grew stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then a crack appeared in the wall beside him. The crack grew wider, and a bright light poured through. Frank stepped back as the entire wall split open. When the dust cleared, he found himself staring into a massive underground chamber. It was not part of the mining operation. Inside the chamber sat row after row of large ships. They were unlike any vessels Frank had ever seen. Their hulls were dark and sleek, covered in strange symbols. Most shocking of all, lights were coming on across their surfaces. The ships were activating. "Control," Frank whispered into his comm. "I think you need to see this." Across the galaxy, similar events were happening. On the water world of Azura, great bubbles rose from the deepest ocean trenches as massive hangar doors opened on the seafloor. On the frozen planet Thule, miles of ice cracked open to reveal launch pads that had been hidden for eons. In the grand meeting hall of the Galactic Confederation, chaos erupted. High Chancellor Xerox called for order as reports flooded in from dozens of worlds. Unknown vessels have appeared at the edge of the Proxima system. Massive energy signatures detected near Rigel. 3 unidentified fleets have entered the Cygnus sector. The Chancellor's scales darkened with stress. Are they hostile? Have they made any aggressive moves? "No, Chancellor," reported Admiral Kex. "They are just waiting. They've taken position near major jump points, but haven't engaged anyone." In a small office 3 levels below the main hall, Lieutenant Susan Rivera stared at her screen in disbelief. As a human history specialist, she had spent years studying artifacts and records of the long-vanished human civilization. Now her computer was matching design elements from the mysterious ships to ancient human records. "It can't be," she whispered. The evidence was clear. These were human vessels, or at least created by human technology. But humans had disappeared 500,000 years ago. How could their ships be appearing now? Susan grabbed her data pad and ran toward the council chamber. She had to tell them what she knew. As she rushed through the halls, more reports came in. The ships were appearing everywhere, always near important systems, but making no hostile moves. Back on Kepler 4, Frank watched in awe as one of the ships rose from its berth. It hovered silently before accelerating upward, passing through what appeared to be a holographic ceiling. In moments, it was gone. One by one, the other ships followed. Frank's comm device buzzed with panicked messages from the colony above. The ships were forming a formation in orbit. On the Confederation capital world, the Council watched in horror as a holographic display showed hundreds of unknown vessels appearing throughout their territory. They were surrounded. "We are receiving a transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's coming from all the vessels simultaneously." The main screen lit up to show a simple message in an ancient language. Susan Rivera gasped when she saw it. She knew what it said. "The Guardians have returned," she translated. "Prepare for the coming storm." No one in the council understood the significance of these words. No one except Susan, who had read the old legends. The legends that spoke of humanity's promise to one day return and protect the galaxy from a threat beyond the stars. Captain Ilara Voss and her team moved deeper into the underground facility on Earth. They passed rooms filled with machines that hummed with power despite their age. The air smelled old but clean, filtered by systems that had worked without fail for 500,000 years. "Captain, over here," called Kent. He stood before a large door marked with a symbol that looked like a shield. "This door is different from the others. It has extra security." Trell scanned the door with his device. The lock is still active. It needs some kind of authorization. Ilara examined the panel beside the door. There was a shallow depression shaped like a hand. She placed her blue hand in the depression, but nothing happened. "Let me try," said Kent. When he placed his hand on the panel, it glowed green. The door slid open. "How did you do that?" asked Ilara. Kent looked confused. "I don't know. Maybe it responds to our body heat." They entered a circular room. In the center stood a raised platform. The walls were lined with data storage units that blinked with small lights. As they approached the platform, the room darkened. A beam of light shot up from the center, forming the image of a human man. He wore a uniform with stars on the shoulders. "Greetings," said the image. "I am Admiral William Caldwell of the Earth Defense Force. If you are viewing this message, then our Sentinel systems have detected your presence and determined you are not the enemy we have prepared for." Ilara stepped forward. "What enemy? Who are you preparing against?" The image continued as if it had heard her. 500,000 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. We called it the Devourer. It moves slowly but with purpose, consuming all advanced life in its path. The hologram changed to show a dark mass moving through space, destroying stars as it went. Our scientists calculated that it would reach our galaxy in approximately 500,000 years. We faced a choice: try to fight it then with what we had, or prepare. We chose to prepare. The image returned to Admiral Caldwell. Humanity went into hiding. We built automated facilities throughout the galaxy. We created ships that could upgrade themselves over time. We scattered our people to secret bases where they would sleep until needed, all to be ready when the Devourer finally arrived. "This is incredible," whispered Trell. "An entire civilization planning across such a time scale." The hologram continued. "If our calculations were correct, the Devourer will reach the outer edge of the galaxy now, in your time. Our ships are awakening. Our people are stirring from their long sleep." Admiral Caldwell's face grew serious. "We need allies. We need the people of the galaxy to stand with us. Alone, even with 500,000 years of preparation, we may fail." The hologram displayed a series of numbers and symbols. "These are coordinates to what we call the Bastion, our final stronghold. Go there. Tell them Admiral Caldwell's last message has been delivered. Tell them it is time." The hologram flickered and disappeared. The room remained silent for a long moment. "We need to report this to the Confederation," said Ilara finally. As if in response to her words, an alarm sounded. On a screen nearby, they could see that their ship in orbit was sending an urgent message. "Captain," came the panicked voice of her first officer, "massive vessels have appeared near the planet. They match no known design. They're everywhere across the system." Ilara looked at her team. "It seems humanity's fleet has arrived. We need to reach the Bastion and deliver the Admiral's message." On the screen, they watched as dozens of massive warships moved into formation around Earth. After 500,000 years, humanity's plan was moving forward. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would stand with them or against them when the true enemy arrived. Deep within a swirling purple nebula, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy, floated the Bastion. The massive space station stretched nearly 20 miles from end to end. Its outer rings spun slowly, creating gravity for the thousands of chambers inside. For 500,000 years, it had waited, kept alive by automated systems and robot caretakers. In the central command room, lights blinked on for the first time in ages. Screens lit up with data as the station's AI detected the signal from Earth. A soft hiss filled the room as a cryopod opened. Cold mist poured out. Commander Nicole Bradley opened her eyes. Her first breath in 500,000 years burned her lungs. She coughed and sat up slowly. Her muscles felt weak but functional. "Status report," she said, her voice rough from disuse. "All systems functional, Commander," replied the AI's calm voice. "Sentinel network has detected the approach of the Devourer. Emergency wake-up protocols have been initiated." Nicole swung her legs over the side of the pod. She looked around at the rows of other pods in the room. Their lights were turning from red to green as the wake-up sequence continued. "How many?" she asked. "Currently awakening 50 command staff. An additional 500 military personnel will be revived within the hour. Medical staff standing by." In the pod next to hers, Daniel Howard was sitting up. He had been her second in command when they entered the long sleep. He looked at her with confusion in his eyes. "Is it time?" he asked. "Has it really been 500,000 years?" Nicole nodded. "The Devourer is approaching. The plan is in motion." By the time Nicole reached the command center, her body had mostly recovered from the long sleep. The medical team had given her injections to help her muscles and organs work properly again. She still felt strange, knowing that everything she had known before the sleep was now ancient history. The command center buzzed with activity as more of the crew awakened and took their positions. Screens showed data from across the galaxy. The positions of the newly awakened human fleet, the reactions of alien civilizations, and the dark mass approaching from the edge of the galaxy. "Status of the stasis chambers?" Nicole asked. Chief Engineer Alan Russell looked up from his station. "We've lost about 30% over time, Commander. System failures, power fluctuations. The AI did its best, but..." He shook his head. "We have just under 1,000,000 people left." Nicole took a deep breath. 1,000,000 humans against a force that consumed entire galaxies. It would have to be enough. "The automated fleet is responding to commands," reported Tactical Officer Maria Garcia. 500 years of self-improvement, and they're more advanced than anything we could have imagined. The weapon systems alone are beyond what our original designs call for." On the main screen, Nicole watched as dots of light representing human ships moved into position throughout the galaxy. Some alien worlds were panicking at the sudden appearance of unknown vessels. Others were sending curious messages, trying to understand what was happening. "We've received a transmission from an alien ship that discovered Earth," said Communications Officer Ben Lewis. "They found Admiral Caldwell's message and are en route to our location." Nicole nodded. "Prepare to receive them. It's time we introduced ourselves to the galaxy." In another part of the station, rows of cryopods continued to open. Men and women who had volunteered for the longest sleep in human history were waking to a galaxy that had forgotten them. Some cried when they realized everyone they had known outside the program was long dead. Others stood resolute, ready to face the threat they had prepared for across the ages. The last stage of humanity's grand plan was beginning. 500,000 years of waiting was over. Now came the time for action. The Confederation ship Distant Horizon approached the bastion with caution. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, watching as the massive human station grew larger on the screen. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a structure that dwarfed the largest Confederation space docks. "We're being scanned," reported Kent. "Multiple times, different frequencies." "Hold position," ordered Ilara. "Open a channel to their command." The screen changed to show a human woman with short brown hair and serious eyes. Commander Nicole Bradley regarded the aliens with a calm expression that hid her inner excitement. These were the first aliens humans had seen in 500,000 years. "This is Commander Bradley of the Bastion. We welcome the Distant Horizon. Prepare to receive our ambassador." Before Ilara could respond, a small shuttle launched from the Bastion and approached her ship. Within minutes, a human male in formal clothing stood in their meeting room. He smiled at their surprised faces. "My name is Keith Henderson, Ambassador of Humanity," he said in perfect Arxian, the common language of the Confederation. "I believe we have much to discuss." Ilara stared at him. "How do you speak our language?" "It developed long after humans disappeared." Keith smiled. "Not all humans disappeared, Captain. Some of us chose to live among the stars, watching and waiting. My ancestors have lived among your people for thousands of years, learning your ways while keeping our identity secret." The news shocked the alien crew. Humans had been living among them all this time. "Why reveal yourselves now?" asked Trell. "Why awaken your war fleet?" "Because the enemy approaches," Keith replied simply. "The Devourer will reach this galaxy within 5 years. We need to prepare together." Hours later, a much larger meeting took place aboard the human flagship Vigilant Dawn. Representatives from 12 major alien species sat around a large table, facing Admiral Patricia Lawrence. The human leader was tall, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. 500,000 years ago," began the Admiral. Humanity detected a cosmic entity that consumes advanced civilizations. We realized we couldn't fight it with the technology we had then. So we made a choice. Screens around the room showed historical records. Humans entering cryo-sleep, construction of massive shipyards, deployment of sentinel probes to the galaxy's edge. Most of humanity went into hiding. We built automated systems to advance our technology while we slept. We scattered our forces across the galaxy, hidden on uninhabited worlds or deep beneath the surfaces of planets you later colonized. High Chancellor Xerox leaned forward. You've been preparing for war for 500,000 years. Against an enemy none of us have seen. An enemy you haven't seen because we've been monitoring it, corrected Admiral Lawrence. Our long-range sensors have tracked its movements. It has destroyed 17 galaxies that we know of. Lieutenant Susan Rivera, now acting as translator for the Confederation, studied the human admiral with wonder. The legends were true, she whispered. The Guardians of the Edge. Admiral Lawrence nodded at her. Yes, some knowledge of our mission survived in myths. We left hints, hoping the galaxy would be somewhat prepared when we returned. The meeting continued as humans shared their knowledge of the Devourer. They showed recordings from automated probes, a vast darkness that consumed stars and left nothing behind. This is why we need to work together, concluded Admiral Lawrence. Humanity's fleet is powerful, but we are few in number now. Many of our people did not survive the long sleep. We need your worlds, your resources, your people. The aliens looked at each other, uncertain. Then Captain Ilara Voss stood. The Archean fleet stands with humanity, she declared. We have seen your dedication. If you can sacrifice 500,000 years to protect this galaxy, we can stand with you now. One by one, the other representatives stood as well. The alliance against the Devourer was forming. Humanity was no longer alone. The news spread quickly across the galaxy. Humanity had returned after 500,000 years, bringing warnings of a terrible danger. Some worlds panicked. Others prepared for war. The great shipyards of the Confederation worked day and night, building vessels based on human designs. On the Bastion, Commander Nicole Bradley watched as alien engineers studied human technology with amazement. The humans had spent centuries developing weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourer. Your power systems are unlike anything we've seen, said an Archean engineer to Alan Russell. How did you solve the containment problem? Ellen smiled. We had a lot of time to think about it. In the command center, Admiral Lawrence met with Captain Ryan Mitchell. He was young for his rank, but one of the best pilots to survive the long sleep. I'm giving you command of the Defiant, she told him. Take a mixed crew, humans and aliens. Your mission is to scout the edge of the galaxy and bring back direct information on the Devourer's vanguard. Ryan nodded seriously. Yes, Admiral. When do we leave? Immediately. We need to know what we're facing. The Defiant was one of the newest human ships. Its sleek black hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Inside, a crew of 20 humans and 15 aliens prepared for their mission. Among them was Science Officer Trell from the distant horizon, who had volunteered to study the enemy firsthand. As the Defiant moved through space toward the galaxy's edge, tension grew among the crew. They were heading toward something that had destroyed entire galaxies, something that humanity had feared enough to hide from for 500,000 years. We're approaching the target coordinates, Ryan announced from the captain's chair. All sensors at maximum. Everyone stay alert. The ship slowed as it reached the very edge of the galaxy. Here, stars were few and far between. The darkness of intergalactic space stretched before them. I'm detecting unusual energy patterns, reported Trell from the science station. Unlike anything in our records. On the main screen, they saw it, a dark mass moving against the blackness of space. It was hard to see clearly, as if the eyes couldn't quite focus on its shape, but they could see the stars blinking out as it moved. Record everything, ordered Ryan. All wavelengths, all frequencies. The Defiant moved closer, using its stealth systems to avoid detection. The crew watched in horror as the dark mass engulfed a star system. The star flickered and died in seconds. "It's eating the energy," whispered Trell, "consuming it completely." Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. "We've been detected," shouted the tactical officer. "Unknown energy signature heading toward us." "Evasive maneuvers," Ryan ordered. "Get us out of here." The Defiant turned and accelerated to maximum speed. Behind them, tendrils of darkness reached out like hungry fingers. The ship shuddered as one of the tendrils brushed against their shields. "Shields down to 60% from just a touch," reported an engineer. With skill and luck, Ryan guided the ship away from danger. They raced back toward Confederation space with their valuable data. Meanwhile, on a research station orbiting a distant moon, Dr. Laura Wilson made a discovery. She had been studying samples collected from worlds the Devourer had previously visited. "It's not just consuming energy," she told her team, pointing to her findings. "It's collecting genetic material from sentient species. Look at these DNA fragments. They're from dozens of different civilizations, all preserved somehow within the residue." She looked up at her colleagues with fear in her eyes. The Devourer isn't just destroying. It's harvesting, collecting, taking something from each civilization it consumes. As this news reached the Bastion, Admiral Lawrence called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. The Defiant had returned with its data. Dr. Wilson had shared her findings. Now they needed to form a battle plan. The galaxy prepared for war as humanity's long-awaited enemy finally arrived. The combined fleet of humanity and the Confederation gathered at the Perseus Arm. 10,000 human vessels lined up alongside 30,000 alien ships. It was the largest gathering of warships in the history of the galaxy. Admiral Patricia Lawrence stood on the bridge of her command ship, Eternal Vigilance. On screens around her, she could see the faces of other commanders, human and alien alike, waiting for her orders. "The Devourer has entered the Perseus Arm," she announced. "Our long-range sensors show it's moving toward populated systems. Today we make our stand." The massive fleet moved into position. Smaller, faster ships formed the front lines. Larger battleships with heavy weapons formed the middle. The most powerful ships, including the Eternal Vigilance, took positions at the rear where they could coordinate the battle. On the colony world New Haven, Colonel Eric Peterson led ground forces in evacuation efforts. The Devourer had sent smaller pieces of itself ahead, dark tendrils that landed on planets and began consuming everything they touched. "Move quickly," Eric shouted to the colonists boarding evacuation ships. "We have hours, not days." His soldiers fired special weapons at the advancing darkness. The weapons, designed over thousands of years by humanity's automated systems, created fields of energy that slowed the Devourer's advance. In space, the battle began. The Devourer sent out massive tendrils toward the fleet. Ships fired their weapons, creating bright lines of energy against the darkness of space. "All ships, maintain formation," ordered Admiral Lawrence. "Focus fire on the points we identified. Remember your training." The human ships moved with perfect coordination, the result of countless simulations run during their long sleep. The alien vessels followed their lead, targeting the weak points Dr. Wilson's research had identified. For a time, it seemed to work. The Devourer's advance slowed. Parts of it pulled back when hit by concentrated fire. But then it adapted. Tendrils changed direction, avoiding the areas of heavy fire. New shapes formed within the darkness, creating shields against their weapons. "It's learning," reported the tactical officer, "adjusting to our attacks." Admiral Lawrence nodded grimly. "As we expected, implement Phase 2. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, Commander Nicole Bradley received the signal. She stood in a secret control room deep beneath the surface of the Bastion. "Activate Protocol Prometheus," she ordered. Her officers pressed their hands to scanning panels. Codes were entered. Confirmations were made. Throughout the galaxy, on worlds that had been colonized by aliens long after humanity's disappearance, something awakened. Mountains that weren't really mountains began to move. Oceans parted as massive structures rose from the depths. What appeared to be natural formations revealed themselves as weapons platforms built by humanity and hidden for 500,000 years. These planetary defense systems powered up and aimed toward space. They fired beams of energy more powerful than anything the fleet possessed, directly at the Devourer. In the command ship, Admiral Lawrence watched as new data appeared on her screens. "Now," she said quietly, "we show our full hand." The Devourer recoiled as it was hit from hundreds of directions at once. Its darkness contracted, pulling back from planets it had begun to consume. On the colony world, Eric Peterson watched in awe as a nearby mountain split open, revealing a massive cannon that fired into the sky. The dark tendrils on the planet's surface writhed and then disintegrated. In her lab, Dr. Laura Wilson monitored genetic samples taken from various species across the galaxy. Each contained tiny fragments of human DNA, hidden there generations ago. It was humanity's final backup plan. Even if they failed, their knowledge and essence would live on, programmed to activate if the Devourer ever returned. "We were never truly gone," she whispered. "We were everywhere, waiting." As the battle reached its peak, humanity revealed the full extent of their 500,000-year plan. They had not just built weapons or ships. They had seeded themselves throughout the galaxy, becoming its guardians across time itself. The war had begun, and humanity was ready.